It's only Tuesday, but it's been a great week for the Florida House and for the people that we serve. Amid a worldwide pandemic and all the challenges that came with it, this House has made tremendous progress on a tight time frame. As of this week, over a dozen bills championed by this House are now on their way to the governor's desk. Among them, we have the New Worlds Reading Initiative, Florida's first book delivery program to open up new worlds and lifelong success and learning for our kids. We also had three bills that were companions and integral partners to those bills. The first was Representative Alupis, his literacy agenda. While maybe not an exciting read, is going to be vital for children across the state as we teach them to read. Representative Grohl and Representative Alupis, I think I said that they were the Batman and Robin of early learning policy. You'll see it's a sweeping reform to VPK across the state they've been working on for a number of years, important to them and important to this House. And another bill from Representative Coster that will help us help close the achievement gap for boys. That also passed out of the Senate. It's on its way to the governor. We also passed to the governor the single largest school choice bill in the history of the nation. There are over 1 million Florida children who don't currently qualify for school choice, who will qualify under this bill. The Portraits and Patriotism Act, so our children can hear firsthand the stories of Americans who escaped oppressive regimes. That was sponsored by Representative Zika. That is on its way to the governor. The REACH Act, our workforce system overhaul, the most disruptive and transformative in the nation, which was written by Kirby from the Times and Florida Politics, so extra credit for them for reading the bill and writing about it. And two landmark bills to combat governments like China from infiltrating our universities, as well as our research institutions. You guys know that we started testimony on that after the scandal at Moffitt. Took testimony for the last session, and then this session you'll see sweeping reforms. We hope they will lead the nation and that other states will follow our lead. The reality is that many of these research institutions, while they may receive great amounts of federal money from places like the NIH, they also are regulated by the states, so the states have a major role to play here. Key pieces of our Accountability Now agenda that include measures to keep IT procurements in special districts transparent. And finally, our constitutional amendment giving property tax relief to anyone who elevates their home to make it resilient to flooding, which is all part of our flooding package that we announced in St. Petersburg prior to the start of the session. All of these House bills have been sent to the governor this week, and all of them originated and were championed by members of the Florida House, so we're proud of them and proud of those signature pieces of legislation. After today, you won't see another special order calendar out of the House. Our bills are now all in the Senate. Tomorrow, we will take up items on third reading and then return to returning messages that will bounce back and forth for the remainder of the week. We look forward to finishing strong as a House. And as you know, we put the budget on the desk for the 72-hour clock, so that begins as well, and we plan on being out of here on time. With that, I'll give Kirby writing for the workforce bill. You get the first question.
Speaker Sprowls, I wanted to ask about the governor. He got a lot of his initiatives in the budget. You got the direct payments for teachers and first responders. You got HB1 passed. A lot of his initiatives did very well this session. How involved was he personally in the legislative process, and to what do you attribute that, the fact that his proposals did so well?
Look, I think this is a hands-on governor. I think this is a hands-on governor who, cares about his priorities, engages with the legislature, engages with me, engages with President Simpson. And that's not just during the legislative session. I think the governor does that when we're not here. He did it during the pandemic, when we had the reopening task force. I was on it. Senate President Simpson was on it. So, we share the governor's philosophy, and, he worked, things that he cared about, his priorities. We shared them, and we included them when we could.
What do you think about the view that he is also a Fox News governor? When you have, House Bill 1, one of his priorities, elections reform, another priority, social media crackdown. I mean, is he kind of playing to a larger audience right now as well?
Well, listen, I like the fact that the governor is going on the evening news and talking directly to Floridians. I think, John, that it's important that they actually get the facts as to what our bills do. One of the frustrations, I think, of being a legislator is sometimes somebody will take a snippet that's not actually in the bill and will repeat it as fact. It ends up being a headline. We'll call someone and say, well, I didn't write that. That's the headline editor, right? But the reality is that's what people know about it. So I think what's helpful to have a governor who's willing to go out there and actually talk about what's in the substance of a bill is it allows that to get directly into the living rooms of people who are, curious about what it is that we're doing. A lot of times I'll go up to a, community group at home and I'll say, give me something that you've read in the newspaper, or you've seen on the news that confused you. Why would you do that thing? Tell me what that is. and hear their response. Because a lot of the times, the vast majority of the time, what they heard or what they read wasn't actually reflective of what we did.
Of course, some of that, though, is also viewed as red meat base playing as well. I mean, does that overshadow some of what you're trying to do wrong?
Yeah, see, I don't consider, so House Bill 1 was one of the ones you mentioned. I don't consider House Bill 1 red meat. I don't think that people consider the protection of their business to be red meat. I don't think that people consider the protection of their neighborhood to be red meat. I think if you were living in St. Petersburg during the summer and your car was surrounded by people and your car was attacked, I don't think you'd consider it red meat if we said, hey, we're not going to let people do that. I think that people would consider that that is the single largest responsibility of government, is to keep people safe.
There's a police reform bill that was unanimously passed in the House. I know that you had a pretty big role with the Black Caucus negotiating that. We haven't really heard from the governor as to whether or not he supports it. You said that he was hands-on. Has he indicated to you in that process how he feels about that bill?
Well, there's a lot of bills moving. I can't speak for the governor. You'd have to ask them. What I would say is that that was a very much a collaborative product between Republicans and Democrats. I think Chair Byrd did a great job. I spoke directly with Representative Driscoll and others who were working on that and felt passionately about that legislation. We also had partners outside the building. Sheriff Gualtieri in Pinellas, Sheriff Judd in Polk County. Both of them worked on that product before it was filed into a bill to help us make sure that the language on the page translated into real trust. And I think what it signals is, really a willingness and a desire for everyone to want to have the best policing possible. But also, you all know it's certainly no secret that, how much I support the police. But I also realize, having been a prosecutor, that it's vitally important that our communities have a great deal of trust in the police. A lot of times when we would investigate crimes, homicides, for example, we couldn't get witnesses, right? People didn't want to come forward. They didn't trust the process. So it's important for the justice system to work, that people have a confidence and a trust level that it's above board.
The governor will sign that bill. He has not signed that bill. He vetoes it. What do you think that's going to tell people?
That's a question for the governor. I'm not going to say whether or not I think the governor is going to veto or not veto any piece of legislation. Look, I think it's a great bill, passed out of the House unanimously. I anticipate, our partners in the Senate are going to pick it up and pass it. I think it makes sense. The Florida, the PBA, the Police Benevolence Association, the Fraternal Order of Police, the police chiefs, the Florida Sheriff's Association, all of them have supported the bill and worked on it as a product. So I think it's a comprehensive, bipartisan, collaborative product, and I anticipate that it'll pass the Senate.
I'd like to ask about the election initiative. I'd like to, if I could ask about the election bill. Just trying to figure out where we are. You all have basically stuck your bill, just about almost everything in your bill that you had in your bill before it came to
Yeah.
today. I mean, before you stuck it on the Senate bill, assuming you're going to send it back there tomorrow. What's the situation? What can you tell us? Is there an agreement in place? Are they going to take that bill and pass it again?
Yeah, no agreement in place at this point. We're putting the House bill on. We're trying to obviously get into a posture to be able to get an elections bill done. There's several bills that are out there like that. We're just going to have to see. We're putting our best foot forward. We're going to send it over to the Senate and kind of see what their thoughts are. It's not one of those things that we anticipate they're going to have no thoughts or no changes. We've certainly been collaborating with them. So some of the changes in the bill, I think, are indicative of the fact that we've been working with our Senate partners. But what ends up happening after we send it over, I can't speak to that.
President Trump, earlier this year, went off and said basically there should be no early voting. Mail-in balloting should be limited. We shouldn't have, he even said we shouldn't have 45 days of voting and 30 days of voting. And he even said Republicans should be ashamed of themselves if they don't act this year to get rid of all that. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on the fact that you're not doing what the president wanted to do on election.
Yeah, I didn't hear the president say that. What I can tell you is I have great confidence in what we're doing in the bill, which is maintains the 45 days, of elections. It maintains in-person voting. It maintains early voting. I honestly think that, as you look at across the country, and I actually did this prior to the election, we have some of the most, open, voting laws and allowing people to vote easily and accessibly in the nation. Many of the states who have kind of heralded themselves as better than us in this regard have far more restrictive voting than other places in the country. This happened when, the MLB decided to boycott Georgia, right, to go back to their headquarters in New York, who has more restrictive voting laws than the state of Georgia after they passed the new law. So that goes back to the whole, I read the headline and I think one thing, but the reality is actually something completely different, and in that case, extremely hypocritical on behalf of the MLB. So, I like the fact that we have early voting. I like the fact that we have absentee voting. I like the fact that we obviously have, in-person voting. I like the fact that we have drop boxes. The House bill has maintained the drop boxes, throughout. I think they're helpful. I think we need to be cautious about how we do it. I think there should be guardrails about how we do it to make sure that it's safe. But I think that they're convenient for folks. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the unemployment bill? You said you have Senate partners and you're working with them. Is that bill not going to get through?
Which unemployment bill?
Raising benefits.
Mary Ellen, I've answered that question maybe from you about 5 times. My answer is still the same. Yes.
So when you wrote the initiative that you led this session, the price of it seemed to quadruple as it went through, and it really grew a lot. My big question for that is, how can you ensure that that program will continue and do what you're trying to do in other reading programs in the past that have seemed to fall into the
No, that's a good question. So the question is, why is this literacy program going to be successful where maybe others have failed? Well, one thing I would say is that Florida has done a really good job on literacy. The fact that this is a focal point for us, isn't necessarily a reflection of the fact that we don't think people have done a good job on literacy. They have. Look at 4th grade reading scores, right? They've gone up nationally. We're in the top 5. I think we're 4th in the nation in 4th grade reading. That's awesome, and we should celebrate that our teachers and our principals have helped us achieve that. But the reality, the other side of that coin is it'd still be 230 years at current trends before every kid reads on grade level. That's where we need radical disruption. So what do we know about that group, right? We know that 88% of those 3rd graders who weren't reading at grade level didn't graduate from high school, right? We know that a large percentage, over 60% of children who are struggling readers in 3rd grade don't have a book in their home. How can you learn to read if you don't have a book in your home? How can you care about reading or think that it's important if your parent doesn't pick it up and say, hey, let's read this book together for 20 minutes a night? Because we know, the studies say, that if you read for 20 minutes a night, the chances that your child is going to read on grade level go up exponentially. If that happens, they're going to go from 3rd grade reading on grade level, they're going to graduate from high school. We know that a large significant portion of the people who are in our county jails never graduated high school, right? So we know that the battle is in 3rd grade. We've got to get a child reading on grade level by the time that they're on 3rd grade. So to answer your question, that's why you're seeing a significant influx of resources into that inflection point, and it's from top to bottom, right? So you have Representative Alupis and Chair Grawl, their bill on early learning, right? Because now I'm getting them into kindergarten. I have to get them on the right foot, so we have to have accountability. That's what their bill does. Then you get into 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. Our literacy program isn't just delivery of books. It is wraparound services for parents. We talked about book boot camps, right? The idea is that the University of Florida will help us implement this, where struggling readers, their families, will get contact, right, from the Lassinger Center at the University of Florida, that they will help them get excited about reading to their kids, give them curriculum digitally so that they can help do that in conjunction with receiving the book, do those kind of books camps to help parents teach their children to read. So all of these things are vitally important because we know even if we're doing an awesome job in the classroom, it's not enough. It's not enough. You have to be reading with your kid at home in order for them to read on grade level. So, listen, we're trying something new. We're being radically disruptive. We're making it a big deal. We're even telling, high schoolers, hey, why don't you, if you read to kids for 100 hours, you'll get this designation as a New World's Reading Initiative Merit, scholar. We want to fully engage, full court press kids when they're young enough to learn to read, because we realize that if we can get to them before they get too old and they're not reading on grade level, the chances of them living a successful life go up exponentially. So that's why it's been so important to us.
On the vaccine passports, there was 2 points that came on the floor today that, citing the story about the school in Miami that won't let the teachers, if they could vaccinate, be around kids. Are you sending the wrong message if banning businesses from, requiring vaccines where you're letting, entities punish people for getting the vaccine?
No, I think it's super weird. Walking into a business and someone saying, do you have your vaccine papers, which is essentially what they're saying. I think it's awkward. I think it's an invasion of people's privacy. We don't even do that in other respects when it comes to other vaccines that have been around for a long time, like, the MMR shot and other things. People don't walk in and say, give me your papers to go to the hardware store or to go and watch, someone play a concert. That doesn't happen. So the idea that it's being contemplated here, I don't think is good. I also think that, I've encouraged, everyone who wants to get a vaccine, they should get a vaccine. We should make sure we try to make it as accessible as humanly possible for them to do so. But we also have to acknowledge that there's some people who have a fear of getting the vaccine. And we have to lean into that. We've seen that in certain communities where there had to be, whether it's at churches or places where they feel safe in order to come and get the vaccine. So I think that's important. I think that, the Johnson & Johnson situation probably set us back, if we're all being honest, that people saw negative results. Even if it's a small group of people with blood clots, it makes people scared if they were not getting it. So, we have to acknowledge that, and I think going to this vaccine passport thing is totally unacceptable, and I think that people would push back on it in a pretty big way.
Back on the elections bill, is there a sticking point between the House and the Senate bill that y'all disagree with? For example, there's the NPA qualifying language. That does a little bit to address what happened in Senate District 37. Would you be open to looking more maybe at that straw?
Yeah, to answer the first part of your question, I can't think of one where I'd say that there was, really a sticking point. I think there was more significant structural differences at the beginning. I think they didn't have drop boxes at the beginning. We had drop boxes at the beginning. All of those things I think have moved closer together. So I don't think that there's a particular sticking point. I haven't really spent a lot of time on the MPA issue, although I'll say, people talk about all the fraud and the MPA issue. And again, I've said this in other contexts, as far as I'm concerned, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. With that said, in that situation where there's an allegation of fraud, 2 people were taken away in handcuffs by the police. So, you can't have, you can't have more laws that say don't do this thing when it's already a criminal conduct and people are arrested. So, if those allegations are true, that'll work its way through the criminal process, and that's what should happen if those allegations are true and somebody was, paid to do something. We're looking through it. We just got it the other day. It's a 70-page compact. One thing I found in gaming, which I haven't had to spend a lot of time with in my time here, is that it's all interconnected. I know I've said that before, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of laws. So we're going to take our time. It's why it was important to us as a House, to kind of let it hang out there for a while, be able to digest it, hear testimony, have people reach out, say what they liked or didn't like about the compact. It's a big deal. It's a 30-year deal for the state. So I think it's potentially a great opportunity, but I think it's one that we should vet thoroughly. If we were, getting a 30-year mortgage on our house, we would read all the fine print and know exactly what we were getting into. And this is no different. This is a 30-year deal for the state of Florida.
Have you looked at whether your staff looked at compliance with the Constitution and the
That's all part of it. So the compliance with Amendment 3 is obviously all part of the compact. Obviously, I don't believe that Amendment 3, when it doesn't necessarily apply to the tribe. Now, there may be other collateral issues in there that need to be looked at that interact. But as far as the actual tribe is concerned, that as far as I understand, Amendment 3 doesn't apply.
What about the same level of bills that would apply to any of them, because they would have to stand on their own, even though it's part of
Yeah, so the other 2 bills were, the Gaming Commission. So I don't think there's anything about that obviously would trigger Amendment 3. We're essentially creating a regulatory, law enforcement type agency to regulate gaming like you've seen in other states. And then as the other one, the pari-mutuel bill, decoupling, I don't think there's anything about that in particular that violates Amendment 3. But like I said before, that's why we're vetting those bills. Now, those particular bills, we were going to file, we're going to have it worked through the process, through the committee process. Because we're going to do the special session the week of the 17th, we're pushing all of the gaming conversations to one time because it just makes more sense. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.